What's really stopping you from becoming a pro player? Is it time? Is it talent? Or do you not have the right support? Well, this is a story about a 14-year-old player from Slovenia who found his way into the competitive scene entirely through his hard work. And now, he's one of the highest ranked players in the entire EU region. This is the story of the back-to-back FNCS champ, TaySon. TaySon, just like many Fortnite pros, keeps all of his fans updated through different social media like Instagram or Twitter. But the oldest of all of his accounts is actually his Twitch. It was created on the 9th of January 2018, and his first ever stream was on the 24th of January a couple of weeks later. He pretty much only played Fortnite for the whole entire 2018, but there were a few other games that came up once or twice: CSGO, COD, Rocket League, and FIFA. There's an important trend there, which is that all these are competitive games. Even at the start of his gaming career, he had a natural drive to compete against other players. He opened his YouTube channel 11 months later on the 7th of December 2018, when he was only 14. But the first video he ever posted was on the 5th of January 2019. It was a CSGO montage, and even though all of his kills were really impressive, you could tell that he's still not quite familiar with competitive games just yet. Because the video still starts with a welcome message and it ends with another one saying, "Hope you enjoyed." His first ever Fortnite related video came the day after, and it was just a montage of just some of his best plays till that point. The editing isn't really that impressive, the quality of kills in it vary a lot, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it doesn't look like footage of an FNCS player. But there's something so magical about it, and it shows off just how committed TaySon was to growing as a player. When you look at this video, you don't see the super focused, high-ranking threat he is today. Instead, you see someone who just loves the game they play, wants to improve the skill in it, and then share that with other people. And he was doing that this entire time. His biggest weakness early on was his game sense. And as you start getting better and better at Fortnite, you keep getting put into more and more unknown situations. It gets to the point where you have to guess where your opponent's going to be based on the info and have to react on where they actually are. TaySon was obviously mechanically gifted at the time. I mean, he had great reactions and incredibly accurate aim, and both of those were developed through all those competitive games he played before Fortnite. But the only way to develop game sense is just really to familiarize yourself with more of the game. He just needed to play more and more to really get to this point. If you're having trouble developing your game sense, okay, you guys gotta head on over to proguides.com. With our 20% off offer, you can have access to fast 24/7 coaching from the pros at prices cheaper than ever. On the 3rd of April 2019, TaySon uploaded a video showing off his skills as an application to the E11 Academy program. It was a crowdfunded competition hosted by the esports org 11 Gaming, where they were looking for a new member to join their Fortnite team. You had to submit a video showing off your skill and explaining why you deserved a spot on the team, and this video was TaySon's. He had even contacted them through Twitter, where he messaged them saying, "I'm not that good, I know, but I think I have some potential and I would like to practice to get better." E11 didn't pick him up back then, and they never publicly said there was a reason for that. But it was probably because he was just another application in a list of hundreds back then. He ended up eventually signing with a short-lived UK team called Team Frag. And a few days later, on the 7th, he'd entered his first real competitive tournament, the World Cup warm-up. He entered into duos with another Slovenian player signed to Team Frag, Pass G Daddy. And to be honest, they did pretty well for their first serious tournament. They got off to a great start in their first couple of games, but choked once or twice in really important moments in the last 3 games. And so by the end of it, they got 51 points and a 158th place. This also meant that they won 0.175% of the $200,000 prize pool and got themselves a clean $350. I mean, not too bad for your first ever serious tournament, right? A month later, he entered the EU qualifiers for the World Cup, but in both solos and duos. This time, he competed with a different player called Zus. He used to get quite nervous playing tournaments at the start of his career, and honestly, that's a pretty common story. Like, when you're constantly trying to focus on your aim, manage your resources and keep track of where your opponents are at the same time, right? Like, you're already going to be stressed a lot. But when it's the difference between making a few $100s or a few thousand, and it's for a spot at the World Cup, whew, yeah, that's a lot of pressure for a 14-year-old. Still, playing for Team Frag, TaySon ended up getting a 157th place in solos and exactly 100th in duos, with most of his points actually coming from placements. They didn't end up qualifying, but in less than 3 months since he first started competitive play, he would already make over $2,000 in winning. And at this point, it just made sense to keep going and just see what would happen. He entered multiple tournaments that were both local to Slovenia, but also others that were open to Europe in general. And as he competed more and more, he started becoming familiar with tournament pressure, and it wasn't such a big deal anymore. You know, all of the experience he was getting from these tournaments meant that the situations he was facing in games weren't as new and terrifying anymore. And because of this, he just started to play a lot more confidently. His results over the next few months were starting to look really good. He entered Solo Cash Cup every week whenever they were open over the next few months. I mean, at first he placed 90th, and then the next one 79th, and by the end of it, he was getting guaranteed spots in the top 25 every single time. But while this was going on, he actually ended up making probably one of the most important decisions of his career, because his rapid growth and results had picked up the attention of another player called Lou, and he decided to start playing squads with him. If you don't know who Lou is, he's a former pro of Fortnite and is now the head of esports for the organization Wave Esports. And in some ways, I mean, he was like a mentor to TaySon. I mean, he taught him a lot about the game that he didn't know, and especially helped him with overcoming his lack of game sense. So in squads, you have to absolutely trust each other, but also yourself. How can you expect someone to rely on you when you don't even believe in yourself? And so TaySon started to reviewing his own VODs and replays and analyzing them. He picked out where his most common mistakes were, like if he was constantly dying in specific situations, and then he would design and use strategies to avoid getting put in that position again. He played a lot of custom scrims as well against a bunch of other professional competitive players. This is a lot more intense than just ranked, because matchmaking is way too inconsistent and difficulty. In scrims, everybody is a serious player, but it does mean that you have to go out of your way to find a community. You know, plan times to play and then make sure everyone shows up. You end up with a lot more consistency in your games and less randomness, just like a tournament. You get to practice communicating, strategies, and adaptation. What that means is your squad mates will actually help you in a scrim instead of just dropping on the complete opposite side of the island and just dying by themselves. TaySon's development as a solo player continued to grow because of the core fundamentals that he was working on while playing as a part of a team. And the European scene is kind of lagging behind for practice. It has its own pros and it has good scrim servers, but none of them are at the same level as the American scene. So TaySon still had to do a lot of solo practice by himself. In 2020, TaySon would team up with another great pro player, Janice Z. And as a duo, they'd place incredibly high in anything they'd enter, and even won a few events. Eventually, TaySon would start playing trios and perform incredibly well at that as well. And this whole time, TaySon was still entering tournaments as a solo player. He got 5th place at the FNCS Season 2 Grand Finals, but when you're that close to the top, why would you settle for anything below first? And these results meant that he was finally getting noticed by big organizations. Remember E11? Well, he finally ended up getting signed to them, and it wasn't through a random competition either. With all of this going on, he kept grinding and preparing for the next FNCS tournament in August, which had a prize pool of $475,000. And if he was nervous before, all of that was gone going to this tournament. He even released a video on the 7th of August, Tilted, Why I Will Win Solo FNCS. He was practicing every day leading up to the grand finals, doing scrims, 1v1s, and free builds just to get his focus ready for the main event. And he played his heart out. At one point, he even took out his own partner, Janice Z.
We've seen at least 4, if not 5. That's a 19-point game. Any player who walks away with a victory here could rocket themselves up the leaderboard, and TaySon's trying to do it, and he does it to Janice himself.
His strategy going into the tournament was to drop his steamy stacks. It lets you see everything, you know, gives you good loot, and if you're losing an exchange, it lets you escape really easily off the turbines too. There were a whole bunch of other great players at the tournament like Ray Zane, but none of them them performed as well as they did as TaySon did. And at one point, he got 12 eliminations in a match and then secured the Victory Royale as well. TaySon ended up beating out his competition and getting first place with an 11-point lead over second place. That kind of performance, guys, is unheard of in competitive play. He was easily one of the most improved players of 2020. Mongrel and Mitchell saw just how talented he was and started playing trios with him. These guys were already incredibly famous when TaySon was just starting out. That's how fast he got good at the game. In about a year and a half, he went from watching these guys to playing with them. The next FNCS series was announced a few months afterwards, and this time, the format was trio. And TaySon's experience playing competitive squads was so valuable. Between Mongrel and Mitchell and TaySon, they probably had the most aggressive trio in the history of the game. TaySon was their in-game leader, making most of the calls. Since Mitchell and Mongrel are famous for how deadly they are, the team composition in this trio was perfect. They ended up getting 3 Victory Royales across 12 matches with 66 elims. They secured that FNCS win pretty smoothly and dominated any team that got in their way. TaySon was now the back-to-back FNCS champ, and it was across 2 different formats. You can't deny his skill when it's results like that. The most shocking part, though, is that almost immediately after the win, TaySon tweeted that he was leaving E11 Gaming. Maybe he just outgrew them. I mean, it's just insane to think that all of this happened across 2 years and it's still playing out. In February this year, TaySon signed to Guild Esports, an esports team that's co-owned by David Beckham. The other members of the organization's Fortnite team are Hen, Flick, and NS. And all of them are incredibly talented players with a lot of experience in squads. So we've barely even seen TaySon's career, and there's so much to tell already. His most recent results make it look like he's gearing up for another FNCS win. He's even started competing in other regions like North America East and Middle East, and getting very high results while on over 100 ping. That was the story of the EU's dynamite success, TaySon. He's become one of the biggest and best players of 2020, and there's no doubt, man, that he's only going to go even further in 2021. You can be just like him. If you continue to compete, if you continue not to give up on your dreams, you can do it. Hey, if you guys liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We have so much more great content coming out. We'll see you soon. Peace.